Welcome to the Global Peace Film Festival Lives Online Conversation 2021 Festival Edition. Please join me, Kelly Devine, the Artistic Director, and Nina Stripe, the Executive Director, in conversation with Emmett Brennan, the filmmaker behind the film Reflection, A Walk with Water. This film is a part of both our in-person screenings and available to catch up with on our virtual festival. The in-person screenings will take place at the Winter Park Library beginning September 21st through September 26th. And our virtual online screenings will begin September 27th, running through October 3rd. Scheduling, ticketing, and other events, all of that information can be found by going to our website, peacefilmfest.org. And now, please join us in welcoming Emmett Brennan. Hello, Emmett.
Hey there. Thanks for having me on here.
Hey, Emmett. So good to have you on with us. So tell us a little bit about the film.
Yeah, totally. So the film generally is a look at our relationship with water as a people. And it leads with the question of how can we design our lives around water in a way that supports the conditions for life. And one of the main through lines of the film is following this group pilgrimage that I participated on and with. A group of us that walked 200 miles next to the LA Aqueduct, which runs from the Owens Valley in the Eastern Sierras back to the city. And there's a really important story to this water story that speaks to themes that we're dealing with all over the planet of our impact on the land and on the water, and how this is creating a pattern of desiccation and desertification, and an impact that is kind of stopping this flow of water, the water cycle on the planet that keeps the climate regulated. So yeah, maybe I'll just say a moment more of that, because it's important to make it clear, is that water moves through plants and vegetation. It's pulled from the ground, sucked through the bodies of trees and plants, and then hydrates the atmosphere with that water. And that hydrated atmosphere is a major part of what keeps the climate regulated. And so as we're developing land by paving it over or plowing it over or pumping it out, like in the case of the Owens Valley in LA, we're getting rid of the ability to move water in that circle. We're flattening that line. And the result, the consequence, is this degrading climate where we're having hotter hots and drier dries and longer droughts. And yeah, so how do we rethink our relationship with water and land and design our lives in a way that holds that circle? So that's what the film is about.
Well, Emmett, how is it that you came to tell the story in the way that you did?
Well, I knew that I wanted to do my best to tell a story that was oriented towards hope and healing, that could somehow paint a vision of what else is possible for humanity in a beautiful light. It's a despairing moment we're in as a people and planet. But also there's such a wealth of information and so many people who are living in really nourishing and enriched ways in their relationship with the land and with water. And I wanted to highlight people who are living in such a way and examine what would be possible at a larger scale, and how can we examine our relationship with land and water in a way that might be applicable to redesigning at a larger scale. So I just, started casting the net and finding these people and these stories, and each one kind of pointed the way to the next person and had, helped me along the way, making those connections.
Well, it is a beautiful journey. And one of the things that I hope people find when they watch the film, that they come away, as I did, impressed with the way that you created a kind of, you said beautiful, very lyrical kind of experience of water, almost in a visual way, mimicking that cycle and that flow. But I also came away with some very practical. I was really surprised that how often I keep mentioning different things I learned from your film to people, even within my own community. And so how was that process? I mean, it seems as if you were learning along the way as well.
For sure. Yeah, I was learning a lot. And it also took time for me to really be impacted by the content of the film in a deeper way, in a way where I was really rethinking, reimagining, and refeeling my own relationship to water and looking at water differently. It took time. Actually, at a certain point in editing the film, it just wasn't feeling alive to me. There was something that was stagnant about it. And this is something that occurs in a really long form project where you, as the filmmaker, the creative, are evolving over time, but the content of the film is staying relatively the same. So how do you keep it relevant? And what it took to keep it relevant was to be impacted by the content, to actually let myself be transformed by the perspectives that are offered in the film, and really soften myself in my relationships with life, with the rest of life. And there's more I could say about that, but so yeah, this was and is the balance that the film tries to achieve. Is, can it open this sort of liminal space in people that is imaginative and allow someone to connect with a new vision and like reorient themselves to something else, while also grounding in these kinds of practical, get your hands dirty, make physical change. And I'm really glad that the film was successful in that way for you, because that's totally what I was hoping it would be.
Well, and that's one of the reasons, given the mission of our film festival, our mission being one where we try to look not only to introduce issues to our audience, but to do so hopefully with models or with actions or with intentions that they can take into their own lives and into their own communities to make the world a better, more just, more peaceful place. And I really thought your film was a terrific exemplar of that kind of model and what we look for. That you did do a very thorough job of showing this complex but critical resource that we all interact with, and often, because it is something so common that we interact with every day, we've ceased to see the magic in it. We've ceased to see the life force in it, and you do a wonderful job of bringing that back. But as you said, also making sure that people walk away with things that they can do in their own communities to mitigate floods, or to do a better job of retaining and capturing the water that otherwise would leave their communities when they do need that water for their communities. So could you talk a little bit about your plans to have an impact with this film?
Sure. Yeah, this is an ongoing and kind of in an early phase of being developed plan. Goal number one is to have the film be seen by as many people as possible, because that's impact. There's a filmmaker friend who I was discussing impact plans with and talking about how we want to get it into schools, universities, and we want to develop all these community screenings and try to pull together policymakers with local activists and scientists and community members and create spaces where dialogue can occur, which is part of our plan. And I really do want to do that. But this filmmaker friend just talked about how sometimes that's not the easiest and most effective way to go. And it's like, get the film into as many people's eyes as possible. Like that is also impact. Don't leave that out. So right now we're working with the sales team and trying to find a distribution platform that could put a film like this into a slightly more mainstream audience, in front of a slightly more mainstream audience. And that it would be such a dream to do that. So we're working that angle. And then also, yeah, trying to find an impact producing team so that we can go into communities and set up screenings and have these kinds of dialogues, and maybe try to find specific policy opportunities in different communities that we could use the film to help leverage and push for some sort of action on that level, because the issues we're facing are so systemic, and we as humans can make our own habit changes that are deeply important, but something's got to change at a larger governing, organizing level also. And so how can we identify where those opportunities are is a big thing.
Well, before I turn it over to Nina, when you mentioned the word policy, while we can't guarantee it, in the past, in our in-person screenings, we have had instances where we have had policy folks, where we've had people from the building department, different infrastructure agencies within the county and the city, and we've always been really proud of that ability to meld the inspirational with with the building blocks of what you can do as a community. It is, of course, really important as an individual to take these things in, but we're a social species and we need to move together on these things. And so I really commend you for keeping that as a focus for
Thank you.
And if there's anything we can do, we'd love to help you move that agenda, that part of your agenda forward with the film. So to wrap this up, tell us what's next for you beyond this film, but also you have actually told us what you're doing with this film, but how can our audiences support your work as a whole? And besides watching it and telling people about it, what else can our audiences do to support this work?
Well, I would say just try to be touched by the pointings in the film, which is essentially be curious about your relationship with water and how the way you're living is creating a rippling of impact on life itself. And do we know where our water comes from? Is a really basic one that most people don't know, and it's just a pretty obvious first level of disconnect. And then there's also this indigenous component to the film, and I would be remiss not to just name how important it is that we recognize that the first people of this land are still on this land, and they're damaged people, as we all are, and they've forgotten a lot of their ways also, but they're also still really holding wisdom of this holistic framework of how to live in a manner that is tending all life, and recognizing how doing this to this thing will have this impact over here, because it's all in relationship with each other. So learning about the story of the indigenous people of the places that we live, where those tribes are, and what kind of support they need, because what a vital thing to do with our resources and time to support these people, to make sure that we don't completely erase them from the story of this earth. And we I don't know, it's just important to prioritize their well-being, because their well-being, I feel like, is the well-being of the planet. So yeah, those are two things to share in response.
That's a really lovely way to leave this conversation, and a great thing for everyone who is listening to this talk to think about. And yes, most people don't know where their water comes from, and it is very important to keep those Indigenous people alive and well, and to get in touch with that holistic way of thinking. So thank you, Emmett, for that.
Yeah,
And
totally.
and so anyone who wants to continue to follow Emmett's work, please go to reflectionfilm.com. As he mentioned, there will be an impact campaign, so go back and visit that website frequently as that evolves and rolls out. And also, please remember to go to peacefilmfest.org to find out all of the scheduling, ticketing, and event information for the festival, including how to see Reflection, A Walk with Water. And thank you so much. We'll see you at the next Glow.